Ancient Egypt. When its name is mentioned, most people imagine pyramids, endless desert, and silent stone statues standing against time. But this familiar image represents only a fragment of the truth. Ancient Egypt was not a civilization of sand. It was a civilization of order, of stability, and of a way of thinking that brought religion, science, and politics together into a single, coherent system. This was not merely a land of monuments. It was a society that endured for more than 3,000 years without a true civilizational collapse. Such continuity is rare, almost unmatched in human history. At its core, Egyptian civilization was built on a simple belief that the universe could be organized, that chaos was not inevitable. What truly distinguished the ancient Egyptians was not only what they built, but how they thought. They believed that humanity was part of a greater cosmic order, that justice, labor, and knowledge were not abstract ideals, but necessary conditions for the survival of the state. To understand ancient Egypt, we must move beyond pyramids and familiar symbols. We must look deeper into the ideas, the structures, and the systems that shaped one of the most remarkable civilizations the world has ever known. At the heart of ancient Egypt stood the Nile, a river, but also a calendar, an economy, and a source of political stability. Each year the Nile flooded its banks, and when the waters receded, they left behind fertile land that sustained life. The ancient Egyptians did not fight this cycle. They learned to read it, to anticipate it, and to build their entire society around it. Agriculture followed the rhythm of the river. Time itself was measured by its flow. Because of the Nile, Egypt did not depend on constant conquest to survive. It depended on organization, on balance, on cooperation with nature rather than domination. The Nile did not merely support civilization, it shaped it. Egypt was among the first civilizations to develop a centralized state. With the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt, authority became clear, structured, and continuous. Power did not rest on chaos or personal impulse. It flowed through institutions, through records, laws, and administration. Scribes became the backbone of the state. They recorded harvests, managed resources, and preserved knowledge. Administration became a science, a discipline that allowed the state to endure across generations. This was not accidental. It was designed. The pharaoh was not simply a king, and he was not merely a god placed above humanity. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was an institution, a living symbol of balance, order, and continuity. His authority did not come from personal power alone. It came from his role as the guardian of Ma'at, justice, truth, cosmic balance. The pharaoh was expected to maintain harmony between the gods, the land, and the people. If this balance was broken, famine, chaos, and disorder would follow, and his legitimacy would be questioned. Power, therefore, was not unlimited. It was a responsibility. The pharaoh ruled with the support of advisors, viziers, judges, and regional governors. Administration mattered, law mattered, stability mattered. Through rituals, laws, and public works, the pharaoh reinforced order not through fear, but through continuity. This system allowed Egypt to survive rulers both strong and weak, because the institution was greater than the individual. Ancient Egyptian society was structured carefully, yet it was not rigid. At the top stood the pharaoh. Below him, officials, priests, and administrators managed the state. Farmers cultivated the land. Craftsmen shaped stone, wood, and metal. Scribes recorded knowledge and law. Each role had value. Each role served a purpose. What is remarkable is how deeply work itself was respected. Skill was admired. Discipline was rewarded. Education, especially for scribes, offered a path to social mobility. Knowledge was power, but it was also service. The strength of Egypt did not rest on one class alone. It rested on balance. Between labor and authority, between knowledge and tradition, between individual duty and collective stability. This social harmony was not accidental, it was cultivated, and it became one of the foundations of Egypt's longevity. Science in ancient Egypt was never abstract. It was practical, focused, purpose-driven. Medicine relied on observation and experience. Doctors documented symptoms, treatments, and outcomes. Engineering relied on precision, measurements, angles, materials. The pyramids were not miracles, they were results, the outcome of applied mathematics, geometry, and careful planning. Astronomy guided agriculture and religious life. The movement of stars helped define seasons, rituals, and time itself. Science and religion were not in conflict, they worked together. Knowledge was a way to understand order. For the ancient Egyptians, to study the world was not to dominate it was to align with it. And this mindset gave their science a lasting, practical character that served civilization for centuries. Religion in ancient Egypt was not blind faith. It was philosophy, a system that explained existence, morality, and destiny. Life and death were deeply connected. What one did in life mattered beyond it. The afterlife was not an escape, it was accountability. Judgment awaited every individual. At the center stood Ma'at, truth, justice, balance. A person's heart was weighed against these principles, not status, not wealth, but moral conduct. This belief system encouraged ethical behavior in daily life, honesty, responsibility, respect. Religion became a stabilizing force, not a tool of oppression. It shaped laws, social norms, and personal choices. In this way, Egyptian religion offered one of humanity's earliest ethical frameworks, linking belief to behavior. Art in ancient Egypt was not created for self-expression. It was communication, a visual language designed to endure. Every figure, every proportion, every symbol was intentional. Artists followed strict rules, not because imagination was limited, but because meaning had to remain clear across generations. Art served religion, it served the state, and it served history. Scenes carved into temple walls recorded rituals, battles, and daily life. Through art, the Egyptians preserved memory. They spoke to the future. This is why Egyptian art appears consistent across centuries. Consistency was not stagnation, it was continuity. A deliberate choice to preserve order through imagery. Across thousands of years, Egypt changed. Dynasties rose, dynasties fell, yet the civilization endured. Change was never sudden, never destructive. Traditions were respected, systems were refined. The past was not abandoned, it was adapted. Even during periods of crisis or foreign rule, Egyptian identity remained intact. This continuity was not weakness, it was strength. By valuing stability over rapid expansion, Egypt avoided collapse. Balance between tradition and adaptation allowed the civilization to survive longer than almost any other in the ancient world. Endurance became its legacy. Ancient Egypt was not a civilization of sand. It was a civilization of people, of ideas, of systems built with intention. Beyond the monuments in the desert landscape stood a society that understood balance. Order was not imposed, it was cultivated. Through governance, knowledge, ethics, and belief, Egypt created continuity. This is why its legacy endures, not because of stone alone, but because of thought. To understand Egypt is to look beyond symbols, beyond myths, beyond the familiar image. This is the story of a civilization that mastered endurance, a civilization that continues to speak across time. This is ancient Egypt, a history that exists beyond the sand.